Okay, so let me reshare and start over. Okay, still good?
Still good.
Okay,
Yeah.
great, thank you. All right, so since we're a small group today, I'm just going to talk about some updates with an emphasis on some of the issues that we addressed during the workshop in November, and see if we can get to the point where we can start taking some steps forward as a group, and in particular on updating this Paleoglaciers inventory that we've just started compiling. So first, some updates for the working group of our membership, if we want to call it that. The number of people who get emails from me is now up to 50. So I think we have some pretty good interest in the community in this working group, even though we're not really formalized yet. So hopefully we can get some good participation in the speaker series over the next few weeks, and get some participation in some of the steps that we've set forth for the working group to take here. So I'll give you the address to the new website. Fortunately, it's much easier to remember than the old one, and it's much easier to search. It's just called paleoglaciers.org. So if you look that up, you'll find it. It has all the same information as the website that had been hosted at NDSU previously. We do have 6 talks, not including this one. I guess with this one it would be 7 that run all the way through March 1st. Once we get into March, we run into spring breaks and other complications and schedules, spring meetings, stuff like that. We do have room to add a few more speakers. If anyone is interested, please let me know. So we'll talk about the workshop. We'll talk about the Paleoglaciers inventory, some details about how to get to that, and some ideas about how we might improve that. I just wanted to let people know about some of the new members. These are all the people, I think I included everybody here, that's joined since the 2023 talks concluded. So basically sometime within the last 10 or 11 months, something like that. And a lot of interest in Utah, which is always good. We have a lot of paleoglaciers there. And what we've done for organizing the talks this spring is we've invited new members, and in particular people who are students, postdocs, or early in their professional careers. So really looking forward to hearing more from new members and hearing the research talks that we have coming up starting a week from Friday. Here's the web address. I didn't include the extra A in paleo, so I hope nobody minds that. It's just simple paleoglaciers.org. If you type that in, this will be the front-facing page, and it just has basically all the same content as the previous one. What I'll add to this are links to the recorded talks as we go through the series this year. I can probably add in links to the talks from last year as well. If there's anything that people want to see on this page, or if they're finding it difficult to navigate, definitely let me know. I can make some adjustments to this. Fortunately, it's pretty easy to do. So the old website is still there if you have that bookmarked. That'll be taken down probably sometime in the next couple of months, and it won't be updated at all. All the updates will be on this one. So here's the schedule. Indeed, today we're just talking about updates and the November workshop. So you can see we have 6 talks over the next 3 weeks. So we're really looking forward to those. We'll be hearing about paleoglaciers in the West, but also paleoglaciers in other places, and a variety of tools and techniques that people have been using to study past glaciation. So we'll get all the way through Friday, March 1st with this schedule. But we can keep going after that. We'll just have to be cognizant of spring breaks, of spring GSA meetings and stuff like that are coming up. So if you or anybody you know is interested in giving a talk to the group, if you've participated in these before, you know that they are relatively informal, at least compared to conference presentations. And it's a great way to get feedback if you're working on something or trying something new, or if you just want to introduce yourself to the community. The weekly meeting times we have set. I was going to adjust these a little bit according to the speaker's preferences, but no one really objected to it, at least of the invited speakers. So we're going to stick with 4 p.m. Eastern as our starting time. You do notice that we will alternate Thursdays and Fridays. So next week, our talks will be on Friday afternoon instead of on Thursday. And that's mainly just to, if people have a conflict on either day, that they can at least attend half the talks, or maybe just a third, I guess, how this is set up. But we really do hope that people can participate live. We just get better discussion that way. But we haven't had any objections to people being recorded. So when I record these things, I'll put them on YouTube and then put links on the working group website. So, and I will reshare that Zoom link every week. It'll be the same one, but that's something that's can be sometimes difficult to hunt down. All right, so the workshop in November, this went really well. It took place over 3.5 days in Salt Lake City at the University of Utah. Leif Anderson was our host there. We had a lot of attendance from people in Utah, from people within driving distance, and from people well beyond driving distance to Salt Lake City. So we're really happy with the turnout for this. We had a little bit of support from the NSF grant that has supported the development of the cosmogenic exposure age database. So we talked about that a little bit. But the main goal for this workshop was to put together a strategy for developing that Paleoglaciers inventory. So we really just wanted to hear ideas from people about how we could grow this thing, ways in which people can contribute data to it, ways in which people can access it, and then just ideas for how it might actually get used, whether we're talking about research, education, outreach interests. And fortunately, we had people with interests in all of those areas. Most people, I think, were interested for research purposes, but we had some good discussion about educational opportunities involving the inventory and outreach, in particular from the folks at the Utah Geologic Survey. So we do have ways that we can, naturally, as soon as I start talking, my cat shows up, so I'm just trying to get her out of the way. We do have lots of different ways that we can represent the database. To get to the workshop website, that's something that is still live. Put a QR code here. You can use that. You can also just go to paleoglaciers.org. If you scroll down that homepage there, you'll see a link to the workshop website too. So that has lots of stuff, mostly just the program, and other information about what we did over the course of the workshop, and that's what I'll summarize now. It also has a very rough field trip guide. We did a half-day field trip, which was really nice, but don't use that guide for anything other than reference. So here's what we did over the 3 days. We had 3 full days at the workshop in November. So we spent the first day talking about the Paleoglacier inventory. So this is basically a set of georeferenced polygons that have been drawn by a number of geologists, a number of authors who've contributed their Paleoglacier outlines in a georeferenced format. So we pulled all these things together. We've represented them in a single layer within a GIS, and that's something that anybody can access now. So we spent some time talking about how that was developed, how we want to expand it, and we had a really interesting discussion in the afternoon on that first day about drawing Paleoglacier outlines. Lots of different ways, of course, that we can do that. Lots of different ways that people did that as a little experiment ahead of the workshop. So I'll talk about that more in just a minute. Second day, we talked about tools. Philip gave a really great presentation and demonstration of the Paleo Ice tools. So we'll talk about details of that in just a minute. And then on the third day, we had some discussions about using the Paleoglaciers inventory, and we had some presentations from students, including a bunch of students that are working with Leif at University of Utah that had drawn some new paleoglacier outlines in Utah and Colorado. So that was really great to see and have some discussion. All right, some details here. Discussion about the paleoglacier inventory. The attributions, this is something that we can include since we're talking about geospatial data, something we can represent in a GIS. We can, of course, have the georeference polygons, but we can have some non-spatial data that go along with those. So that's what we're talking about with attributions here. So we have quite a bit of information attached to the paleoglacier outlines now, but there's certainly more that we could add. Glacier geometry is something that we could add in. Philip has developed some tools just for working with the georeference polygons that could automatically attribute these with their geometric properties. We talked about having some linkage between the inventory and ICE-D. If somebody was looking at the inventory and they wanted to know if there was some cosmogenic dating that had been done in that area where the glacier had been reconstructed, we can get a direct link to those data. There are other ways in a GIS to be able to get that information too. We talked about including some indication of confidence. I've got that as another discussion point here. The intended viewing scale of the paleoglacier outlines. We're not really trying to limit the inventory to paleoglaciers that are drawn at a very fine scale. We can certainly have them displayed at larger views like state scale or multi-state or something like that. And then having some sort of metadata that could be attached to an attribute table as sort of a relational database. There's a lot that I think we could indicate about the way that these drawings are done. There are lots of different ways that we get information in drawing these outlines. So there are certainly ways that we can build that information out through some metadata or through some fields that don't have to appear directly within the feature attribute table. We talked a lot about uncertainty, how we should represent this within the drawings. There are some strategies that geologic mappers use to reflect uncertainty in drawings. There are different sources that we have in this compilation, and currently none of them represent uncertainty in their outlines and in ways that are easy to get anyway. So this is something that could be modified throughout the inventory. As far as confidence goes, this was a fairly lengthy discussion, but I think we kind of arrived at this idea of just having a fairly simple scale, low, medium, and high, with a rubric that guides contributors to the database and how they can express confidence. And potentially looking at some existing protocols, probably within the geologic mapping world, for building out that rubric. As far as access goes, we do have pretty easy access to the database if you're comfortable working within GIS. So there are basically two ways to get to it. One is the easiest way, really is just for ArcGIS users. But since the database was compiled in ArcGIS, it's available as a web-hosted feature. So if you connected to a portal in ArcGIS Pro or something like that, or if you went to ArcGIS Online, you'd be able to search for the database, and I'll give you the search terms or the name of the web-hosted feature in just a moment. Another way that you can do that, connect to it through ArcGIS or through QGIS or through another GIS is as a web feature service. So both of these things work pretty well. If you work in ArcGIS, the web-hosted feature is a little bit easier to get to. In any case, it includes all of the paleoglacier outlines, and it includes all of the attributes that we have to date. We've talked about doing some peer review as the database grows. Hopefully it will grow over time. and having a rotating review committee, basically like a subcommittee of the working group, to take a look at new data as they come in, take a look at existing data, and how we want to perhaps update those data, just to give people a little bit more detail about where the data come from and how they were generated. And then we've talked, I think, to a lesser degree during the workshop, but we've had some conversations since then about how to contribute data to the database. And simplest way to do that now is just to email me, I suppose. I can update the hosted feature layer pretty easily, but we should talk about attributes and other things that should be included in Paleoglacier outlines. So so that was a very fruitful day and a lot of detail about the inventory. On day two, we I think people really appreciated a guided practice and demonstration from Philip about using the Paleo Ice tools. These are really great for ArcGIS users, people who are working in ArcMap or ArcGIS 10.x. You can get a version of Paleo Ice that works in that software. There's also a version 2 that works in ArcGIS Pro. And I think a lot of us who are accustomed to working in ArcGIS, if we've been avoiding ArcGIS Pro over the years, I think our days are numbered for being able to continue working in the old desktop system. But fortunately, ArcGIS Pro is becoming better, becoming easier to use, I think anyway. I've been learning it over the past few months, and I've stopped complaining about it, at least recently. So anyway, we have availability to those tools. Philip has shared them through GitHub, and it was really great for people at the workshop to be able to learn about this. We also spent some time learning about ICE-D. Joe Tulenko led a demonstration of the cosmogenic exposure age database, how that's been developed quite a bit over the last few years. Talked a little bit about the database design, accessing it. Joe's been working on some querying methods that are going to appear. I don't think they're available yet on the ICE-D website, but there are a lot of new tools that Joe and other users have developed to make it easier to get the data that you want, get them in a GIS, or get them represented in some other ways and with statistics. So this was a nice interactive part of the workshop that I think people really appreciated a lot. And then on the last day, we spent some time in the morning just kind of having open discussion. People were talking about research ideas that they had, thinking a little bit about the database, getting new data added to it, talking about ways that the Paleo Ice tools could be combined with some other tools that are being used within the community, glacier modeling applications, for example. So that took us through about half that day. And then in the afternoon, we had presentations from a number of people, quite a few students working with Leif at the University of Utah. And then we had some folks from elsewhere that presented some new findings too. And that included some new cosmogenic chronologies, data from young and old moraines in Montana, for example. We heard from Darren Larson about some lacustrine sediments and records that he's been putting together in the Tetons that have really helped to advance our understanding of deglaciation. And then we heard about some modeling applications too. So really some great new stuff that was being presented at the workshop, and hopefully new contributions to the database, new contributions to understanding paleoglaciation in general that we'll be reading about. On the fourth day, we had just fantastic weather. It started out kind of cold in the morning, but we took advantage of having some experts from the Utah Geologic Survey. Adam McKean in particular helped with leading a field trip just along the Wasatch Front, going to some shorelines of Lake Bonneville, looking at the Wasatch Fault, and then we looked at faulted moraines at Little Cottonwood Canyon. So that worked out really well. Still visible here? Yeah. Okay, so some details here about the Paleoglaciers inventory. So how this is set up, I didn't include an image of it in the slides here because it doesn't look great when you take a view of the whole Western US. You can see Yellowstone and a few others, and that's about it. So, but if you want to take a look at it, there are more detailed instructions on the working group website. But if you're used to working in ArcGIS, you can go into the portal to search online data sources and just type in Western US Paleoglacier outlines, and it should be one of the first hosted feature layers that comes up. So the nice thing about that is you can basically open the database in a GIS project that you have on your desktop or your laptop, and you'll be able to use the database however you want. If you want to download your own copy just for local storage, that's fine. We also have a web feature service. This is just another way of being able to connect to it, but it's one that's usable outside of ArcGIS. So if you're used to working in QGIS, you can access it that way too. This has a fairly long URL, so I've just created a link to that on the Paleoglaciers website. So really, anytime somebody wants to use this, they can very quickly get access to it. So was sort of the first step, I think, in getting people to look at this thing and hopefully as a community put together a strategy for being able to update it. And we took a lot of steps toward this at the workshop. I think since we had 20 people there, that was great. The whole working group is much larger than that. So what I was hoping we could do today, or after people view a recording of this, is just get a little bit more feedback on how we can develop this thing. So we have how many people on the in the Zoom right now? Is it 9? 9, including me? Yeah. Glenn's here. Welcome, Glenn. So let me reshare just so we can take a look at this. Okay. You guys can still see my slide, right? Okay, I was just going to annotate this thing. So has anybody accessed the database so far? Few people have, other than at the workshop. Okay. Maybe I can ask the question in a different way. And if you just want to chime in, turn on your microphone and chime in. Based on the information I provided, do you think you could access the workshop, the database? All right. I got to change my view so I can see people here.
Yeah, it's straightforward. I've had my students who are working in my group connect to it on their own projects and stuff as well. Yeah, really easy.
Okay. All right. Great. So connecting through Arc, connecting through Q, that's kind of what we've had in mind so far. Would people be interested in connecting to it through Google Earth or some other way?
Yeah, Google Earth would be
Yes.
cool. I mean, I feel like you could export part of it from Arc or something, but yeah, Google Earth would be great.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So if I can, I'll have to think about the workflow a little bit. If we end up just having new versions of this thing available, just periodically every 6 months or something like that. That's easy enough because it's online, but it's not continuously being updated. So we could certainly do that instead of asking people to go into a GIS take those steps themselves. So, okay. Any other ways among the folks here that they would access the database? Besides those things? Okay. All right, so attributes. It's kind of a hard question to answer if you're not looking at it, but I don't have an immediately easy way to open it. But what are some features, I should say some non-spatial characteristics that you'd like to see included in the attribute table?
Well, anything about age.
Age, okay.
Yeah, I mean, any geochronology that we have.
Okay. But I think a lot of what's there currently is, is it supposed to represent the LGM? And it's either the LGM or it's something else. About 90% of it is, probably more than 90% of the outlines are just called the LGM. But where we have chronology, we can certainly link out to something like that. For the ICD, it's pretty easy to do.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a local LGM, it may be significantly different in age, place to place. So if we have
Right.
any indication of ages would be nice.
Right. Yeah.
What about tying things to if they're being drawn from publications or they were supplements to publications, so the source is really clear?
Yep. So we do have we have author names. We have a DOI where that's available. I think we have titles in there as well. But that's one thing that we talked about at the workshop is adding as much about how the outlines were drawn as we can get. I think that can help with just thinking about scale, thinking about confidence, things like that. So,
yeah.
So right now, yeah, we certainly have credit since it's a compilation. We have credits to sources, authorship, and so on, but there's certainly more that we can add that has to do with data creation. All right. So for geometry, there are some things that we can link to just the polygon characteristics themselves, but there are other things that we could link to, say, a DEM, and much more, as Philip demonstrated, if we have glaciers that have been modeled with paleo ice, then there's a whole lot more that we can indicate about these. So I think there's a few things that could be discussed in there, but the nice thing about it is each polygon has a centroid. We're using that centroid to give a unique paleoglacier ID to each polygon that's been drawn, and then there are some other geometric properties that we can generate pretty quickly in the database. Others that would take a few more steps. But that's something that is not fully expanded yet. It can be, I think, relatively easily.
Yeah, I think, during the meeting, we talk about maybe, create different type of tables, some metadata type, the data source or how to draw some kind of like a geometry, just you mentioned, the basic polygon geometry. Some maybe kind of derived or modeled or interpreted. For example, we may have different models, and different model give us different data set, different properties. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the idea we talk about. But yeah, maybe we need to come up some detailed structure and then provide that for the community to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then for the ages, I think we can definitely, I like the idea we link to the ISD and then we have site ID, and we probably also can pull out the age, from the database.
Yeah, and I think it would be good, because not all glaciers, or I should say, not all chronologies are cosmogenic, right? There's lots of other data that
Yeah.
are being generated for at least putting age limits on ice extents. So I think we could have more attributes in there if we can't link out to another database, some way of indicating that there is some age control and what that age control is. So
yeah.
all right, so when we were talking about how to actually draw these things, we're running a little bit longer, aren't we? I'm sorry about that. We were talking about how to draw these things. We're getting into confidence and uncertainty, and that's something that I think maybe we can we can benefit a lot from people who have done geologic mapping and have thought about these same issues with drawing contacts and other boundaries. So I think maybe that's something we can discuss another time. We're going to lose a few people off the call here shortly. Any other things to discuss about the inventory though before we wrap up?
I had just kind of a general question for the group in terms of coordinating efforts for glacier outlining. Like I've got some new students, undergraduates who joined my lab recently, and I'm setting them off to outline glaciers, with supervision.
Good, yeah.
But I was curious if there's a way that to make sure that, I mean, I guess it can be good to have multiple people working in the same area, but if we can kind of communicate with each other and coordinate where the outlines are happening, that could be useful.
Sure, yeah, and I think that's I think one of the benefits of having a working group, right, is we can just kind of provide periodic updates. I'm happy to be the person who relays that information. If you just wanted to send a list of projects that you've got going on, Aaliyah, that'd be great. And if other people are working there, hopefully that can just open up the communication a little bit.
Yeah, that'd be great. I mean, obviously, Leif and his students are really going for it in Utah. So I was like, okay, I think they've got that covered. We want to pick somewhere else a little different. But yeah, that'd be great to have some somewhat regular communication about that.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to get collaboration going too. We have so many people in the working group who are working on different types of geologic records, different dating methods. We have modelers within the group. So yeah, I think that could really help to open up the communication.
One thing that I've thought about since the workshop, I guess I thought about it there, that really has to do with the last two points down here, is it struck me, maybe particularly talking with Leif and his students, that we bring different sort of almost philosophical or biases to things. So the example that came up in the meeting is these sort of high altitude, low relief interfluves, and do you put ice on them or not? I wonder, I don't know whether this could be done, but whether there would be something if you are producing a bunch of polygons for some range in Colorado that has these high areas, sort of explaining that you have tended, because these are fairly controversial areas, you've tended to exclude those or to include those. So someone who's kind of working with the database could have an idea of the approach of the person who's, put these polygons in. That, I might say, well, I don't want to put ice up there on these areas with tors or something like that. But other people might have a different approach. But people looking at my polygons, maybe they would be aware of it looking at the polygons, or maybe there should be something about the way I've chosen to delineate the ice margins. I don't know whether that made much sense. But I don't know, it just struck me, if I were using someone's polygons in areas like that, maybe I could figure that out by looking at the polygons, but maybe it would be nice to have some statement of the approach that was used in generating the polygons, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, we could have, the metadata could include like an abstract or something, that includes that. We just have to think of a way to express that consistently, across contributors. Folks, I'm really sorry to do this, but I have to take off here. If I'll just leave the room open if you guys want to keep it going. But sorry, I was talking too much, I guess, earlier. So please continue the conversation for as long as you want, and I hope we can come back to these things, as we're communicating more in the coming weeks.
Okay.
Thank you, Ben.
Yeah, thank
All right,
you.
thanks
Yeah,
all.
Ben.
Sorry for the abrupt ending here.
Okay.
Really. All right. We'll see you all soon.
Okay, bye, everyone.
Yeah.
Okay, bye.